You, okay, yeah. So the lobby just shat itself for a second there,
Oh,
because Call of Duty.
yeah, you gotta love this game, dude. I hate this.
Oh
Dude,
man,
honestly, like, I haven't played as religiously in a while as I have with you guys, and every time I do start playing religiously again, I see all the flaws of this game and just want to shoot myself. This game has
right?
so many flaws. This is how I feel playing fucking New Vegas, dude, or Skyrim. Both of those games. I play those games the same way I play Modern Warfare, where I'll play it religiously, and at the same time I regret it because all the flaws become abhorrently apparent, and I'm like, okay, this is a really shitty experience.
Yeah, yeah. I feel
Like, when was the
games
last time you replayed New Vegas?
honestly like a couple months ago.
How did you do it without blowing your brains out? My brother tried replaying New Vegas. He used to
Mods.
love New Vegas, dude. Oh,
On
you modded
PC
your game.
mods.
Okay. Yeah, no, my brother and I never
You know
mod
what I like
games.
to do? You know what I like to do with the New Vegas? I like to download the mod, add the stuff that they took out.
Hmm.
Is it fixes it doesn't actually change the game, but it just like adds a bunch of fixes
Content.
that the developers just never squeezed in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just like there's like some broken quests and stuff that like the data is there. They just never like got it to work.
Right.
And also, I don't know. The thing I like about Fallout New Vegas, um, is just that like I feel like it's the only RPG I know of where there's literally like if you wanted to kill every single named character in the entire world, you could, and you could still
Okay.
win the game.
You
Like
need to
kind
play
of no
Outer
problem.
World.
I know, I do.
Outer World is even better
But
in
even
that regard, in regards to absolute freedom and how you can interact with any player. Not in regards to dialogue, but just like physical interactions, whether or not you kill or let them live, or if you want to fuck the entire game over, you can do that in Outer Worlds. Like, if you want to fuck over your main storyline, you can straight up just kill the people who are supposed to give you those quests because there's no locks on it. There's nothing. So the
I
only
don't know.
downside to Outer
Something
World
about
is the role playing sucks compared to New Vegas, where no matter what skills you
yeah,
level up, like, it really doesn't benefit you or hurt you. Like, you're always just going to be overpowered.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I also don't know why. Like I've watched like some gameplay of Outer Worlds, but like and it's a game that should like check every single box for me, you know? But it's like hockey for me. Like hockey should be my favorite sport. It's everything I love in a sport, and I watch it sometimes. I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't grip me.
I think it's
But I don't
because
know.
what happened was, in my opinion, when I first saw the trailer for Outer Worlds, I got a huge Bioshock vibe out of it in regards to storytelling.
Yeah.
And then it didn't
No,
have
you
that.
know what? I do actually know what it is about Outer Worlds. It doesn't. I like true. Like and Outer Wilds is like open world, but it's open world in the way that The Witcher is. You know,
Yeah.
like and I don't know. That's just not. I have a very particular taste in games. It's very fucking whack.
Dude, if I were you, I think the open world game that you're probably gonna love the most that you didn't think you'd love is Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo
I should
Switch.
get that. Should get that.
Honestly, I
No,
think
I think I would like that.
that game, I don't think the consumer base has quite realized exactly how that game has manipulated the gaming industry in the open world genre. Like, since that game's been released, that and Horizon Zero Dawn, since both of those games have been released, no open world has actually taken off.
Good point.
Like, Sekiro is technically, I guess you could call it open world, but the story is linear enough where you don't need to backtrack. Which
Yeah.
is why I personally wouldn't call it an open world game, just because the story doesn't encourage it. But realistically, like, there hasn't been a game since then that's done well. The only game that I can think of that was open world that got any sort of major publicity is Fallout 76, and it got shit publicity.
that was Fallout 76 just shot itself in
Well,
pieces.
because it freaking still
Sick.
uses the same engine as fucking Oblivion.
Does it really?
Yes, Skyrim, Fallout 3, New Vegas, Fallout 76, and Fallout 4 all use the same exact game engine.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
That's why the games haven't changed.
Yep.
Did you know in Fallout 3, you know how trains move in Fallout 3?
Yeah, it's a person wearing a hat.
It's a person wearing a fucking hat. The game engine in of itself doesn't work. Yet they keep trying to make it
Yeah.
work. It doesn't fucking
that's-
work.
That's how they came up with VATS, right? The game couldn't
Yep.
render bullets well enough.
Yep,
They were
exactly.
like, what if we? And it created, but that's the thing that kind of disappointed me about Fallout 4 was they tried to modernize it,
But here's the
like,
thing.
it wasn't good enough to work as an actual like FPS, and they ruined VATS. Like
Wait,
that's
it's not so much ruining VATS. VATS is unique because VATS is literally there because the game doesn't actually function. Let's be real, VATS is literally like a turn-based combat system when it really shouldn't be
Yeah.
there. It really shouldn't.
no, but I liked it. That's one of my favorite parts of Vegas.
Probably because you're lazy at first-person shooting. Like, let's be
Probably.
it requires zero skill. You literally hit V, you look at your screen, you look at the percentages, and then you gamble with yourself and say, which one am I most comfortable selecting?
Yeah, but I don't know. I like that. I dig it.
I don't like that. I really don't. Like, if you're giving me a gun, I want to be able to make the skill shot. And that's what I hated about New Vegas is you can't. Because like you said, they used it to freaking cover up the game engine, and it's very apparent. As soon as
Yeah.
you try playing the game without using VATS at all, it is a nightmare.
You know what I like about VATS? You know what like the thing is that really just tickles my bones? When I come into a room, like, and I just round the corner right there. I love just being able to go into VATS and kill them all. Like, you know, like in one-on-one encounters, I agree. Like, it's kind of like, I don't like it for just individual fights, but I love just like rounding the corner and being like, okay, well, I have fucking 6 shots in this pump action shotgun. I'm just gonna kill all 4 of you right here.
Yeah, no, I'm still not
That's
about
what I
it.
like.
Like, I think for me the biggest issue is that it's a clash of genres, right? Like, I like JRPG combat, I really do, right? Where it's turn-based, you know, like Paper Mario, like old Final Fantasy shit like that. I genuinely enjoy that. But the thing is, the rest of the Fallout games don't really complement that. You know what I mean? Like, the rest of the game is
Yeah.
all about real time exploration, real time conversation, real time, and then all of a sudden your combat isn't, right? I would actually 120% play Fallout if it behaved like XCOM.
Saying, that actually gives me an idea. Have you ever heard of Wasteland?
No.
Go on Steam and look up Wasteland 2, like, Director's Cut.
Okay, well,
I don't
here's
know
the
if you
thing. I
like
don't
that
have a
or not.
PC.
I haven't actually played it yet. Oh, don't.
No, that's why I'm on a PlayStation, dude. Like, literally, the reason I bought this PlayStation was because I wanted a game, but I didn't want a game competitively. So instead of saving my money for a PC, I was like, I'm just going to buy this console so that I don't lose my life to video games. And then I started creating content for video games, and I've been regretting this decision almost every day, buying a PlayStation rather than a PC. But, you know, shit happens. Dude, I would 100% play a fucking... I want to play the first 2 Fallouts for that reason, actually, because they look a lot like old XCOMs.
Yeah.
So, and I've heard that the storylines in the first 2 Fallouts are better than all the other ones combined.
So have I. Although I liked... Well, yeah.
So I didn't
I will say,
like...
You know what Bethesda...
Go ahead.
You know what Bethesda still does, I think, better than anyone?
Huh.
Is, like, actual, like, morally based, like, story decisions. Like,
I would
it's-
disagree with you there.
Really? Who do you
Yes.
think does it better?
Have you ever heard of the game, oh shit, what's it called? Max used to play it back in high school. It's a fucking great game. It's an indie game where it's technically HP Lovecraftian. You, like, send a bunch of people down into a dungeon to like clear out your basement for
Let me
you?
clarify. Um, most morally like triple A.
Oh,
I'm sure there's.
triple A, triple A. Let me
I'm
think.
sh-
Let me think. Let me think. Hmm.
and I'm talking about not just because I think other developers produce games that are really morally questionable, but I think Bethesda does that a lot. Like because I feel like there's just for me, there's so many Bethesda games where I really don't know who's. And maybe that's cheating because they just don't give me the information to that for myself. But I don't know.
You know, that is a
Now they
yeah. I get.
ruin it. I
Well,
mean,
no, I take that back. I would
ruins it,
disagree with
but
you. I would disagree with you with Skyrim specifically. I tried playing Skyrim, playing Lawful Good, and the game isn't fun.
you're no, you're absolutely right. You can't with the game for whatever reason. Skyrim,
Skyrim
like
is
you actually like
explicit. Yeah,
can't.
it's no, it's built for you to be evil. It is literally is.
Yeah, but I just mean like when I'm talking about like main story, like just like who's right, like the Stormcloaks or the Imperials. I feel like there's compelling arguments for both sides. You know.
No, I would disagree. I would say the Stormcloaks are 100% wrong.
Really, but you don't think there's any argument to be made for that?
No, because think about it. Think about it. Skyrim has
Okay.
been part of Tamriel. Okay, Tamriel has basically been a unified country since before Oblivion, since Morrowind, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right.
And Morrowind is significantly farther in the past. So really, freaking the Stormcloaks are holding on to an ancient ideology that Skyrim belongs to the Nords, when realistically it's been having immigrants for thousands of years.
Just I somehow
That's like
never feel good about choosing the Imperials.
I always feel good about choosing the Imperials. My first
I
playthrough,
never
I
feel
actually
good.
chose the Stormcloaks because I didn't look into the lore, and I was like, yeah, this land obviously belongs to the Nords. It was the first Bethesda game I played. I hadn't played Oblivion yet, and I never looked into the lore. And then afterwards, after I played Oblivion, I looked into the lore, and I was like, the Stormcloaks are idiots. They're racist bastards. It's almost as if someone was holding up the ideology of the Confederates, let's say 500 years from now, okay? From today's date, 500 years from now, they still believe that America would be better with slaves, is literally what the Stormcloaks are doing. And it's like
Yeah.
your entire nation has literally moved on from that point and significantly benefited since moving on from that point, but you're too stupid to realize that.
In fairness, I make every decision in Skyrim based on how much will this hurt the Thalmor.
Yeah, I didn't actually understand why the Thalmor are bad every single playthrough I've had with Skyrim.
Really, they're like elf supremacists.
Yeah, but like they didn't necessarily do anything bad. You know what I mean? They kind of like
They
exist
definitely
and just
do shit bad.
so do the Nords though. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody in Skyrim does nasty shit, right? So when I see the Thalmor, I'm like, okay, like why the fuck should I hate you so much? I don't quite understand when everybody else is also doing nasty ass shit too. Like you haven't made a compelling
Listen, my
argument.
biggest complaint with Skyrim is that I can't kill more.
I guess that wasn't my complaint with Skyrim. My complaint with Skyrim is that it wasn't really that great of a role playing game.
No, it really wasn't.
So realistically, the only reason one
a
would
good
play
game,
Skyrim,
but
I don't even think it's a good game.
really, but for the time,
Not even for the time. I brought this up with you earlier.
Why?
The first Dark Souls, the very first Dark Souls, was released the same year as Skyrim.
oh,
Like, dude, you put those games side by side. In regards to world design, Dark Souls did better.
but they're different. They're different types of game.
Ah, not really. I mean, the only way you could really classify them as quote unquote different kinds of games is because Dark Souls deliberately gives you a challenge rather than Skyrim just Doesn't do anything.
Hey, how many? I have a question. How many lines of dialogue does your Dark Souls character have?
It depends on how far you've gotten into the game. Their dialogue changes. So
Give or take.
in each part of every game, each character has four line groups. I'll call them four. What's the word I'm looking for? There's a word. I'll call it four pieces of dialogue, even though it's more than one line, right? So you can talk to a character four times before it starts repeating itself, right? After every boss fight, I think it changes. I want to say after every boss fight, because their dialogue has nothing to do with your progression per se. Their dialogue is strictly just to provide lore to the world you're in. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Rather than Skyrim, like, you get a lot of dialogue just because it's filler. It's literally flavor text. Dark Souls doesn't believe in flavor text. Everything that is in Dark Souls is incredibly intentional. Like, even the respawn points are incredibly intentional to the lore of the game. You get what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
So that's why I wouldn't want to compare the two, because, like, for example, let's take the guards. They took an arrow. They were an adventurer until they took an arrow to the knee. That's flavor text. Does that build to the world at all? No, not at all. Except that every guard apparently has a huge leg injury.
But it's a damn good meme.
It is a damn good meme. But, like, you get my point. Like, a lot of the text in Dark Souls in Skyrim is flavor text, rather than everything
Yeah.
in Dark Souls is intentional. Even the text, the quote unquote flavor text in items is intentional in lore building. People will quote item descriptions to build to the storyline of all the Dark Souls games because all the text is that intentional and important. Do you know how much flavor text is actually removed from the game because they didn't believe it added enough to the world building? That is a level of detail that went into the same game released in the same year as Skyrim. And Skyrim couldn't even get fucking horse physics right. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, when you look at exactly what's being put into each game, Dark Souls blows it out of the water.
When theoretically open world games try to convince me that it's like a big world and that doesn't feel lived in, Skyrim never felt lived into me, you know?
It doesn't. It really doesn't. Like, that's what I actually didn't like about Whiterun. I felt like Whiterun was a failed concept.
Right.
The description of Whiterun in a loading screen is it is bustling with
20
activity.
people there.
Exactly. There's only 20 people. There's what, 5 shops, and you call that the trading hub of an entire country? Excuse me? You're wrong.
Yeah, I liked Oblivion for that. Oblivion felt more lived
Oblivion is a better game than Skyrim. 100%.
in. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So, and another thing I didn't like about Skyrim, lack of color. Skyrim has a huge lack of color. Everything's gray.
Yeah, but you know what? I liked Skyrim's color palette. It
I didn't.
spoke to me particularly, but I agree. Like, it was objectively not good.
No, objectively is terrible. Oblivion had some grays, but then they had flower fields. There's not a single fucking flower field in Skyrim. You cannot walk in a field of flowers in Skyrim. But you can walk in a field of flowers in Oblivion. Which is, what, 6 years older? The fuck, Skyrim? What'd you do? Bethesda, why'd you drop the ball? I feel like since Oblivion, Bethesda's actually been shadier and shadier with their games. Like Skyrim, sure, it was cool. It was a great one-time experience in all reality. And then after that, they released Elder Scrolls Online, which released as a $60 title, and you then had to pay monthly to play. The fuck? And not only that, it didn't actually add anything to itself. Sure, it added some lore. Sure, you could like get cool equipment, but the combat sucked. The leveling system sucked. It just felt like a shitty MMO. It didn't even improve on the flaws that both Skyrim and Oblivion obviously had, but instead incorporated those flaws into its core gameplay loop. Like, the fuck? Like, dude, Everybody will point out the flaws to you, yet you do not improve. Okay, all the Fallout games again have the same issues as Skyrim. Not all of them. Sorry, 3, 4, New Vegas, and 76 all have the same flaws as Skyrim because it uses the same engine and didn't improve on anything. Instead, it just got a broken formula and kept running with a broken formula. Actually, I take that back. Fallout 3 was a broken formula in regards to role-playing, which New Vegas fixed. But in regards to a physics engine and a game world, they're both mediocre at best. In regards to storyline, 3 and 4 absolutely suck hot garbage. New Vegas did a pretty good job with storyline, although I felt like it definitely could have done better in regards to exactly what a character said, because I felt like there was a lot of useless lines and a bunch of useless dialogue in those quest lines that built story in New Vegas. And then 76 was just a shit show all the way around. It didn't do anything right? And now we're expecting a new Elder Scrolls to come from from Bethesda now. Like, I take that back. Doom was good. Bethesda did a good job with Doom. They did a good job with the first Wolfenstein. The ones after that were like, they were a little iffy. They kind of strayed from what made Wolfenstein great, but it's okay. It wasn't like a major IP for Bethesda. It was more experimental. But then Doom did really well, right? But Doom wasn't necessarily made by Bethesda. It was more funded by Bethesda. But Doom's gameplay loop was great. Its story was meh. It was way too dragged out, in my opinion. But the gameplay loop was phenomenal. And this new one I'm not excited about just because, like, what are you going to give me? Like, Doom 1, but just with a different story, and you expect me to pay $60 for that shit, Bethesda? Like, the fuck?
Yeah.
So, I'm not excited about this new Elder Scrolls.
That same lived-in issue with Fallout. Actually, that's also the thing I liked about Fallout New Vegas, was that I still think it's the game that just, to me, made me feel like it was the most lived-in world.
It is. It definitely is. 100%. Out of all the Fallouts, New Vegas is the best. But as a game, it is still objectively bad.
Even all of the Elder Scrolls.
I still like Oblivion more than I like. I like Oblivion more than.
Oblivion's the only one that comes close.
Oblivion is just a great game.
But yeah, I don't know. It just, again, I'm just talking about, like, everywhere you go in, like, New Vegas. I felt like, I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is a town. This is a city. People
You know what you need
here.
to do? I want you to play Shadow of the Colossus on Justin's PlayStation or Bryson's. Okay. The game was released on the PlayStation 2. Okay. And that's actually all I'm going to give you. I want you to play the game, and then I want to talk to you about it to see what you think of it. Because there's just a lot about that game that's worth talking about that I don't want to talk about with you if you're going to end up playing it, because it will ruin the entire experience for you. So I want you to play that game and compare it to AAA titles that you've played within the last 5 years. Because, God, that game's so old. It's 15 years old, dude. It's so fucking old. But it's a great game.
Well, but they made the remastered edition. The
remastered edition didn't really change a whole lot. I really don't like that they call it remastered. It really didn't do anything. Exactly. It just, they added new graphics. Other than that, they didn't change anything about the game. And that's another issue I have with people calling games remastered. If the game is remastered, that means you've changed aspect about the game that didn't work before and remastered it.
Like Resident Evil 2.
Exactly. Remastering is not throwing new graphics on it.
It was good remaster.
I don't know. I've never played any of the Resident Evils. From what I've heard, it was a pretty solid remastering. The third one, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Everybody's on a huge nostalgia trip, though. Everybody's on a huge nostalgia trip. Everybody's re-releasing games. It's weird. It's a weird spot to be in right now in modern gaming. Having a lot of older games re-released and not getting a whole lot from the AAA industry and really relying on the indie titles. It's a strange time to be in.
I
Because,
will say
like,
though, Shadow of the Colossus is a pretty fucking game. Pretty.
it's a very gorgeous game. It really is. And you'll appreciate it more
I
when you
want that
play
world,
it.
but open world.
It is open world. Oh, Shadow of the Colossus is open
No,
world.
but I mean, I want Skyrim to just be in that.
Oh, that would have been cool. But, Skyrim's bad.
I dig that aesthetic.
Dude, that game was released 15 years ago. Shadow of the Colossus was released 5 years before Skyrim.
Damn.
I don't even know if I'd call Shadow of the Colossus better than Skyrim, though. Because it's just a completely different game. It's so different.
If you can't. You cannot. I can't believe you even just suggested
The
that.
way the game Shadow of the Colossus makes me feel while I play,
No,
I like more than Skyrim.
No, don't.
No. Once you play the game, you'll realize why.
No.
You'll realize why.
I cannot believe I've just heard.
No, here's the thing, Patrick. Patrick,
Listen,
you got
listen here,
Patrick.
you goddamn fucker. You've crossed the goddamn line.
No, I haven't.
gone.
No, Patrick, you don't get it. You don't get what I'm saying. The way Shadow of the Colossus makes me feel while I play, I enjoy more than Skyrim. But they're in two different genres where comparing the games themselves isn't justifiable. Like Star Wars and Star Trek. I like the way Star Wars made me feel while I watched it more than I like Star Trek, but I can't objectively say that Star Wars is better than Star Trek or vice versa because they're two entirely different genres of sci-fis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from. Shadow of the Colossus, its gameplay loop makes me feel better while playing it than Skyrim's does. But I can't objectively say that Skyrim or Shadow of the Colossus is better than the other. And once you play it, you'll understand why I can't make that conclusion, but why I'm able to conclude that Shadow of the Colossus makes me feel better. Like literally you don't even have to finish the game. You can literally just go through 3-4 boss fights and you'll be fine. And you'll basically understand the game in its entirety. And why the gameplay loop is so classic and will never be forgotten, and why it's able to travel a minimum of 3 generations of consoles, from 2 to 3 to 4, and probably is going to get remastered for the 5th one in all reality.
I remember 45 minutes ago when you hopped on and I was like, yeah, I'm about to get off.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, good times.
Good times, dude.
Yeah, this is the content we get when no one bag it.
Yeah, I've actually been recording this whole thing, so.
Oh, have you? Oh, great.
Yeah. I'm gonna definitely use this. I'm probably gonna make it a podcast episode.